I played 200 hours of Path of Exile, so you don't have to. What's the state of the game? Is it worth playing? How's the new player experience? Should a vet go back to it? Why even give a fuck? In case you were only expecting a casual discussion about a casual game, get ready, because this shit's about to get heavy. This is Path of Exile.
And we're ignoring the fact that Diablo Immortal comes out in a few weeks, by the way, guys. That's not a game.
And it gets him so fast. It says he's been slain, and he hasn't even lost any life.
D4 bad.
One of the first pieces of advice you get when starting this beautifully chaotic, seizure-inducing, kiwi-infested clusterfuck of a game is that you should look up guides for how to play the game, but more importantly, build guides. One problem though, for a new player, the guides are fucking gibberish. Before starting a new character, I looked up a bunch of build guides, and you're telling me a new player is supposed to decipher this shit? All the jargon, all the systems, all the third-party software was too much for my brain-rotted, monkeydonian little mind to comprehend, so I chose violence. I decided to take things into my own hands and make my own build. Unlike my first character from 2 years ago where I chose to play as Asmongold's dad, I had to start a new character so that I can play the new league. And I was perplexed as to whether I should do it as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson with hair or Jenna Ortega. I decided to go with the former. When I started my character on the new league, my plan for a build was vague at best, and what was that plan, you ask? Firebonk. I hadn't the slightest clue as to how I was gonna make that dream come true though, but as I was going through Axe, things were starting to look good. I went with Volcanic Fissure as my main ability, got a couple of War Cries and Rage to buff up my damage, even got me a little Flaming Brain with Flex that fights shit and buffs my damage even more. The build was doing quite well, but then something happened. A game changer, if you will. Fucking Gore Hell dropped, baby! And in like Act 4 too. Truly a blessing from RN Jesus himself. Now for the record, yes, I know that the name of the weapon is technically like Cum's Axe or something, but come on man, it's Gorehell. You're out of your mind if seeing this doesn't immediately make you think of Grom Hellscream. It does shitloads of damage, generates rage. Rage, by the way, is a thing you can get that makes you do more damage the more of it you generate. The Axe of Cumhell, however, adds a fire damage effect to your raid on top of the regular damage. Pair that with adding attack speed to my rage effect from my Ascendancy. Ascendancies being like a class upgrade that you can pick later in the game for your class. The Firebonk dream was becoming more and more of a reality. I ended up with a build that has 3800 health and over 70% to physical and all elemental resistances, and does more than 11,000 damage per second, which begs the question, why the fuck am I still weak? I was absolutely tearing ass in the main campaign and in normal maps, thinking I got a pretty good build going, but then I started doing magic in rare maps and snapped back to reality. Oop, there goes my pride. Maps, by the way, are the main endgame content in Path of Exile. Most maps I would absolutely obliterate, but some of them... This leads me to some of the things I would criticize about the game, because it can't possibly be a skill issue, right? Right! First of all, everything that kills you in this game does so in a fraction of a second, even with a seemingly tanky build, and sadly this is not an exaggeration in the slightest. The way that you play this game most of the time is you just breeze through everything like it's nothing and then BAM! You're dead. Out of nowhere. There's this one Ascendancy skill that increases the damage you take by 10% but increases the damage you deal by 40%. This skill doesn't actually have a downside as far as I can tell, because I'm never below like 80% health in this game, so increasing the damage that I take doesn't look like it'll lead to more deaths. The only times I ever die in the game is only when I get one shot out of nowhere, but it doesn't seem like there's anything you can do about that. Then again, I am still kind of a noob, so bear with me. I did everything I thought I was supposed to do. I got maxed out elemental resists, enough armor for 75% physical resist, I took a shitload of life nodes, and I still get one shot by fire damage or other shit that I'm resistant to. What the fuck? Now the reason that this happens is yellow enemies spawn with random modifiers, and while usually they're no big deal, often enough they spawn with insane damage, attack speed, crit boost stacked on top of each other, giving them ridiculous damage. Oftentimes paired with ridiculously high health and health regen, and sometimes even extra abilities like abilities that let them zoom around the map. So picture this, you can't kill them quickly enough because of how much health they got. They're zooming around the map, so by the time you get back to them, the damage that you did do was for nothing because of the high health regen, and they're already back to full, making them almost unkillable. Although keep in mind, almost unkillable. I don't know if they can ever be literally unkillable. I have not ran into anything in this game that I did not manage to eventually kill as of yet. Like look at this bitch for example. This guy could nearly one-shot me, so I had had to dodge his abilities all the time and look for openings like a FromSoft game. It took a long time to kill him because he had loads of health as well. If this guy spawned with a big life regen modifier, he would be literally unkillable, because while you're avoiding attacks waiting for your chance to hit him, he's already back to full. Now that didn't happen. I don't know if that is possible to happen, but if it did happen, this guy would be unkillable for the difficulty of the map that I was in. I know there's probably builds out there that could one-shot this guy, but for the siege map, one of the first maps that you do, it was a little bit ridiculous. Again, build does over 11,000 DPS. Here's the skills and support gems that I use. What am I missing here? So my assessment of this is, you can have a shit ton of health, armor, and resist, and be tanky, but you can still get one shot. You can have so much life leech and regeneration that you don't even need flasks anymore, but life regen and life leech is useless if you get one shot. You can't react to the killing move because anything that kills you does so in a fraction of a second, and you can't learn the mechanics and avoid the attacks because most of the one-shots are caused by the random modifiers, so they're random, therefore you can't expect it. So when it comes to the one-shots, it seems as though your only option is fuck you, deal with it. Enough ranting though. There is so much more good than bad in this game. 10 years since its release, and it's still outperforming itself, reaching its all-time peak player count just a few weeks ago. It might have even beat its own record again as of making and releasing this video. I don't know, I would not be surprised. This is the greatest aRPG ever made, I think, and I'm gonna tell you why. The combat is fun, fast-paced, and fluent. The customization is insanely good, and while it is overwhelming at times, figuring this shit out is an absolute blast. It's also incredibly rewarding. The game has great rewards and a great variety, great items and weapons like You done? What do you expect when everybody in your country drives a fucking tractor from 1945. I had this problem that I later fixed where my attack speed was shit for a bit, so I found this weapon that was like two one-handed axes chained to each other that hit really fast, but because they're like linked to each other and you can't equip them separately, they counted as a two-handed axe, and I guess the two-handed axe perks that I had on my character affected these one-handed axes, which was like, it's unique, you can go for some, yeah, one-handed, two-handed axe build. Now I'm not gonna act like I understand the finer intricacies of this game's lore, but surface level, very good setting, very good vibe check, very good dark fantasy, but also cool. It's not like depressing dark fantasy, it's like cool dark fantasy. It's awesome. I like the vibe check. Peak. And I find that the vibe and general feeling of the game, the music, the art style, the general art direction, if you will, in a game is incredibly important. If this is not good, then the game just feels boring and soulless. And Path of Exile nails it. The music in particular is really something. The 7/8 every first bar switching to 9/8 every second bar in the intro music, I can't tell you how much I geeked out about the music in this game. Customizing your stuff with gems is a one-of-a-kind experience. You basically make your entire character class yourself from scratch. Or you could follow a build guide, which you absolutely should do as I say, not as I do. And then there's the game's economy. Holy shit. Fantasy games often have historical inspiration, yeah sure, but usually they feel like a fantasy version of the Middle Ages, whereas PoE feels a lot more ancient, one with the buildings and the not wearing pants and all that. The game's economy reflects this ancient setting perfectly because there's no gold. Instead of gold, you trade with a wide variety of items classified as currencies, but there's much more to them than that. Items will drop while playing the game that you can use for things like fast travel, upgrading items, changing their stats, customizing your gem sockets, respecking your skills, and much more. These items can alternatively be used as money, both when trading with players and with vendors. Say you want to buy a sword from a vendor. Instead of costing you gold, it'll cost you, say, 3 portal scrolls, which are used to portal back to town. The RP of this is also pretty cool because it sets a tone that feels much more ancient because you're trading with useful commodities instead of with currency. This was recently made even more fun in the new league, which lets players build their own town called King's March. Gold was added as a currency that you can only spend in the town. What I really like about this is that we already knew that both Gold and King's March would be in the sequel coming next year. This update creates like a little in-between point where you're actually building the city that will be in the second game, and you're with the first culture to use currency. Nowhere else in the game can you use gold, only in King's March. You get to see this game develop historically, and you get to be part of that. Instead of it just being in the lore, you actually play through this game historical and trade development, and that's really cool. Especially since the consequences of this will be seen in the second game when everybody's using gold. It's cool how you're not just a loner like in most games, games like this, because even without Settlers League, you got people working for you in your hideout and shit. Settlers makes this even better though, and it makes sense. Someone as powerful as me, just running around and questionably killing every deity I run into, should have loads of people working for him. I don't want to pick up my own treasure. I got Nico for that. I swear, man, it is insane to think that this is a free game. Speaking of free games, there's this thing where you can get $280 worth of Steam games for a one-time payment of $12. Basically, this website offers a massive bundle of games every month that once you get them, you keep them on your Steam forever. They tell you what next month's games are gonna be up front, so if you don't like next month's selection, you can just pause your sub with one click. And the best part is, it's for charity. A percentage of everything you spend on Humble Bundle will go to a variety of different charities. Again, you get over $280 worth of games for $12. You keep them on your Steam account. This ain't like Game Pass where you lose access to the games if you unsub. If you don't like the games that they offer that month, you can just pause your sub with one click and you don't get charged. A portion of what you spend goes to a variety of different charities, and it supports the channel, which is great because your boy needs money for stash tabs. So what are you waiting for? Stop paying those absolutely ridiculous prices that Steam charges. Click the annotation up here or the link in the description and sign up for a Humble Bundle. Another thing I want to bring up is the combat. Oh baby, the combat. Your boy is somewhat of a connoisseur of aRPGs, and I don't think I've ever seen an aRPG combat system that I like quite this much. Fluent, responsive, fast-paced, loads of enemies, great level design, you kill shit quick, shit kills you quick, so you better be quick. Path of Exile is to aRPGs what Doom Eternal is to first-person shooters. When you fight shit in this game, you have, dare I say, fun. And the random encounters, absolutely remarkable. Except Sacred Grove. Fuck this save the plant bullshit. I want blood and gore! Deforestation! The RNG in this game is fucking weird though. I know that I need to do maps to get a trial of Ascendancy to spawn so that I can get the offering and get my final skill points. I even got all the nodes which should add up to 10% spawn chance, but I've ran over 60 maps since then, and no luck. Oh, just give me an Ascendancy and put me out of my misery. I was pretty much ready to give up and get back to it later, and that was when it dropped. A yellow map. Could this be my salvation? Is this where the Ascendancy spawns? I decided to give it another go, knowing full well that there would be a difficulty leap between yellow and white maps. I upgraded it to rare with an Orb of Alchemy. I entered the Colosseum. The enemies were doing loads of damage. My palms were sweaty. Knees weak, arms were heavy. The boss was regenerating faster than I could deal damage, but I succeeded. More yellow maps dropped. I did more and more and more. And finally, nothing. No Ascendancy trial. What am I missing here? I have the nodes. Am I doing something wrong or just bad RNG? The reason I want to do these is they drop offerings of the goddess. I got one from trading with a player, but then this happened. Justice. Turns out you need a separate offering for every single attempt. I thought it would just be unlocked. Fuck this game, man. This game is amazing, this game is awesome, but fuck this game. I'm really torn on what I think of the new player experience in this game, as Path of Exile is the kind of game that gets better and better the more you understand it. But accessibility-wise, it's far from perfect, because I don't think that any game should require add-ons and third-party software to understand and play properly. That was one of the main reasons why I quit retail WoW, and I don't want to do it here either. Although in all fairness, the requirement for third-party tools for PoE doesn't seem to be anywhere near as bad as it is for WoW. I eventually gave in and got Path of Building though, and I'll probably need to get a loot filter soon as well. But now for the part that everybody's been waiting for. The new league and the current state of the game. Well, my fellow nerds, I'm glad to say that out of the 2 leagues that I've played in this game, this is the best GGG has ever made. In my humble, though confident opinion, I think every single aspect of this league should stay in the base game forever. For those that don't know, leagues are like a seasonal thing in this game, where something new gets temporarily added to the base game, and it spices things up a bit. And if players like it, some of it, if not all of it, gets added permanently to the base game. The current league is Settlers of Calgary, and it more or less adds Animal Crossing into Path of Exile. Basically what you do is you go and you try to hire the cheapest child labor that you can possibly find, and then make them farm, mine, craft, sail ships, and do endgame content for you. And I love it. It's so cool. Not only is it loads of fun, but it comes with a shit ton of much needed quality of life changes, like paying for stuff in the town with gold, a currency exchange guy, fucking respecs, finally. Even better than that, it shortens your grinding, because it adds a passive way to get upgrades and currency with shipping and running multiple maps at once for you. I just have one problem with this though. I feel that with building your own town, there's been a missed opportunity here. Now that you're building your own town, you had the perfect chance to add an auction house. The trading system in this game is pretty much the exact same as Warframe if you've ever played Warframe before. You go to the trading website, you look for the item you want, message the player if they're online, get in a group, meet up and trade. But what if I want to buy something from someone who's not online? Or what if I just don't want to interact with another human? Fuck them. The currency trading system is so good, man. I don't know why they didn't do this for items as well. I'm looking at you, Mark. Auction house when, Mark? Auction house when? Then again, maybe they're not adding an auction house on purpose because it'll make the game worse in some way that I don't understand yet. Because even with 200 hours invested, I'm still kind of a noob. Which leads me to my final point. 200 hours is more than enough time to 100% most games twice. But with PoE, I feel like I've barely scratched the surface. So, here's my skill tree, my stats, my items, Pantheon, Ascendancy, and my skill and support gems. If anybody has any suggestions on how to improve this guy, do not hesitate to leave a comment. Please, man, I need help. To the point of the current state of the game, as mentioned earlier, PoE consistently beats its own player record even 10 years after its release. And there's a reason for that. This game is very niche, and the devs know their niche very well. I was talking to a friend of mine a while back. He's not a big gamer, but he said something that blew my mind. Games with squares, he called them. You know, aRPGs, MOBAs, MMOs, games that have your abilities in little squares on the screen. He said, I don't like games with squares because they look too complicated. That made me realize something about PoE, and I think it'll help you realize whether or not this game is for you. It's not a very visually comprehensive game, but I think that's a good thing. If you look at Elden Ring, for example, even though it's a hard game, it's very visually comprehensive, even to non-gamers looking at the screen. Big man, make hammer go bonk, avoid getting bonked and bonk back when you can. Obviously, these are both great games, but the thing with Path of Exile is that it's less appealing to broader audiences, partly due to its lack of visual comprehensiveness. The reason I say that this is a good thing, though, is because it's particularly appealing to its niche audience, and that's why it has amassed such a cult following. A game for everyone is a game for no one, as the devs of Helldivers 2 said. So if you like games with squares, which you probably do if you're watching this channel, I'd highly recommend checking this game out. You won't regret it. Don't forget to check out Humble Bundle for massive discounts on Steam games. Link in the description.